Hello, Lincoln Leopards. I heard that you started reading Charlotte's Web. So I am going to teach you how to create some really cool art projects inspired by spider webs. Everybody's project is going to look a little different, and I have a few different variations of the project that you can do. If you have oil pastels or crayons at home, you can use those. And you'll also need watercolors, or you can use food coloring if you want to paint. If you do not have paint at home, that's okay. You can do the artwork with just crayons or colored pencils. Here's an example of one just using crayons. So there's quite a few different options that you have, and I'm going to teach you how to create all of these, and I'm excited to see how many different versions of Charlotte's Web we can get. This first version is an oil pastel watercolor resist. Notice how the lines are centered on the paper and then go from corner to corner diagonally. To get the lines centered on the paper, you're going to want to use a ruler and measure halfway down the paper. Again, you do not need to do this, and your spider web does not need to be centered. But if you want it to be centered, this is how you would do it. So measure halfway. So if your paper is 8.5, then it's 4.25. You want to make a mark on both sides of the paper and then connect them with the ruler. Then take the ruler to create diagonal lines from corner to corner. Do this on both sides. Then you want to measure the length, just like you did before, and mark halfway. So if it's 11 inches, it's 5.5 inches is halfway, and connect the line. Then you need to create the web surrounding that center point. You could do this in a variety of ways. One way is to draw a circle, which sometimes it's hard to get a perfect circle. So you could use something to trace if you'd like. So find something round to trace. Make sure you draw lightly, and then connect the web where the circle touches every line. But then you're going to need to erase part of the circle. And I know sometimes it's been difficult for people to draw light enough to erase and not see their pencil line. So you can also just freehand and draw the web. Notice how it's slightly curved, almost like a W. When you're starting to draw, you can also use oil pastels. So if you're going to use a really light color oil pastel, you might want to just draw with the oil pastel first and not even draw with pencil. If you're going to be using white for your web, you don't want to draw it with pencil first because you'll be able to see the pencil line under the white. For this version, I chose to use different color oil pastels for all the lines so that it's really colorful. But you don't need to do that. You could use white for the lines, you can use black for the lines, you can use just a few of your favorite colors. They will all look different. You can also use crayons instead of oil pastels because it will resist the watercolor as well. And again, if you don't have watercolors, you can always draw everything using crayons, colored pencils, markers, whatever you have. Now paint it with watercolors. Don't worry about painting over the oil pastels or crayons. You can paint right on top of those designs and the watercolor will not ruin it. If you are going to be painting with watercolors or using food coloring, you will need to use thicker paper, such as watercolor paper or cardstock. In this version, I'm going to use a black crayon for the web. I'm using a piece of paper to draw my straight lines, in case you don't have a ruler. I'm freehanding the web portion around that center spot, and notice how on this one, I don't have it centered on the paper. Now I'm painting it with watercolors, and I'm using a different technique than I used before, where I'm painting the lines towards the center, and I'm alternating colors on the web. And here's another version where I used blue crayon for the web. I painted the web blue, and then I did a gradation of watercolors in the background. In this version of the web, I actually used white oil pastel in the background to draw the web. You can also use white crayon. If you're going to do this version, you do not want to draw with pencil and then draw the oil pastel on top of the pencil. Now I'm painting over it, and remember, you can paint right over the lines. You can also choose to write something in the web just like Charlotte. You can write before you paint, or in this version, I wrote after my paint dried. This final version's done only using crayons, and I used a regular piece of paper. Thinner paper is easy to fold to create the lines, so I folded it and then I used a magazine to draw my lines, in case you don't have a ruler. Now I'm going over it with black crayon, drawing my web with black crayon. You could do this with marker or colored pencils as well, and I chose to color all the different pieces different colors to make it a very colorful web. I hope you enjoy making your spider webs, and I can't wait to see them. As always, stay creative, my friends.